Now let's head into our award segment, which is our brownie point segment. Once again, we're going to give out 3 brownie points, 2 brownie points, and 1 brownie point to the standout players on offense, and then we're going to do the same for the standout players on defense. Levi, let's talk about our offensive brownie points first. Who do you got at 3, 2, and 1 brownie points for this Browns game?
Well, at 3 brownie points, I have David Njoku. He had a really good game.
Incredible.
Really good game, and did not have the boneheaded mistakes, which was really nice. And I love it because Njoku has like 2 plays. He has a play where he breaks out big and he gallops along and then inevitably leaps at the end. And then he has play of in the middle for like 5 yards. He gets it and then shuffles his feet and falls into 2 defenders and gets like 8 yards. But hey, they're 2 plays that work. But hey, he had an amazing touchdown grab. Really good. Great concentration. And what I love about that is it's a play that required great athleticism, but also great concentration. That when it came in, he had to concentrate to get his feet down and make sure that the catch counted. That's really good to see because he's always been an athlete, but he's also, again, had those boneheaded errors. So it's really good to see him be able to marry the two, to marry the ability to make that athletic play, but then also have the concentration to get your feet down so it's a touchdown first. That was awesome. And, I mean, he had 100 yards. He was phenomenal. He was great. He was explosive. He's the Njoku we've been waiting for. It's definitely been his best year overall. He's had those mistakes. He kind of reminds me of the Mike Evans of tight ends. You know, he's a guy who makes a lot of big plays and you love him, but occasionally he makes you just hit your head on the table and just some bizarre drops. But at the same time, he is really explosive and he's really good player. And he showed it today. So absolutely 3 brownie points for him. Moving on to 2, I'm going to go back to Amari Cooper. Mr. Steady, he wasn't all over the field like he has been in some of the games earlier, but he was still really good. He caught 7 for 77. He still had big plays when it mattered. Yeah. Several big plays when it mattered, including that catch. And don't get me wrong, Joe Flacco threw a laser. That's his best throw. That's the best throw I've seen from a Browns quarterback since 2020.
Oh, yeah. That was an incredible throw.
Incredible throw. Honestly, yeah, since 2020, maybe even before that. But individual throw was phenomenal. But also, like, on those plays, it does require a certain amount of concentration when that ball's coming right in that window and you got defenders all over you. Cooper played great. Like, when it mattered, he made some really big plays. Being Cooper, doing the right thing for us. That was awesome. He gets 2 brownie points. And lastly, at 1 brownie point, I will go with Joe Flacco. You know, he made really big clutch plays. And so that gives him that moment because he made those big plays, and they were big plays. He didn't just play within himself. He made some huge throws. So he deserves credit for that. But he gets 1 and barely 1 because he also made a ton of mistakes. The Browns defense shut down the Bears. They got 2 touchdowns because they got an interception for a touchdown and an interception that brought them to the 2-yard line. So that was 2 touchdowns. So he's like the Tony Stark over here. Like, he creates as many problems as he's solving. But at the end of the day, when they need him the most, he made big plays. And that's why he's Tony Stark and not just some guy you get rid of as soon as you can. And that's why he's still Joe Flacco. He still gets a brownie point because he did come through when it mattered. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have 0 disagreements there. I'm going to run through mine. But David Njoku also at 3 brownie points. He had 10 grabs today, over 100 yards, and a touchdown. Another great game from him. We've been talking about very consistently, but often, like you said, like it's been a mixed bag. He'll have this great game and then a couple bonehead plays or a drop that's just so frustrating. He had none of that today. 10 catches. He was pretty consistent. He was there throughout the game. Excellent performance from David Njoku. At 2 brownie points, I also have Amari Cooper. He had, to run his stats, he had 4 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. And at 1 brownie point, we got Joe Flacco. Also, Joe Flacco was the reason we won, and Joe Flacco was also the only reason it was close in the first place. The Bears' offense wasn't doing anything the entire game, pretty much. The defense was shutting them down entirely. Like, the Bears could barely move. The only reason the Bears scored any points was because Joe Flacco put them in a position where they could barely do anything but score. Basically handed it to them. So Joe Flacco's the reason it was close. Joe Flacco's also the reason we won. Like you said, kind of a bit of a Tony Stark situation there with him. But at the end of the day, we won, so I'm going to give him his props. I'm going to give him his 1 brownie point. Moving on to our defense, because the defense really was good today. Who do you want to give your brownie points to on defense?
Well, so first of all, it was definitely a team effort. I think it was a team effort defensive kind of day. It wasn't really one of those dominant 1 or 2 guys. I didn't feel like it was a team effort, but there were outstanding performers. So without further ado, and I'll throw some honorable mentions. JOK, 6 tackles and a sack. deserves an honorable mention. Myles Garrett got held a lot, so he still was making some ruckus, and he's your favorite player, so I'll leave you to deal with all that. You can take it to the refs, but he did have some plays, so it's not like I did not mention it. But going right into the brownie points, 3 brownie points, I'm going to give it to Denzel Ward. He comes back, immediately has an impact. DJ Moore didn't have a huge impact on the game. Caught 52 yards. Wasn't a real explosive 52 yards. It was mostly non-factor. Didn't do a whole lot. So that was good. And, I mean, DJ Moore's a really good receiver. And he's had some good games out there with Chicago. So that was big that he could come back and immediately right off the injury list, come in there and slow down DJ Moore. Make sure he wasn't a huge factor in the game. That was a huge part of, again, why they gave up so little points. When you consider those interceptions, is really impressive what the Browns defense did. So huge props to Denzel Ward. Moving on to 2 brownie points, I'm actually going to go with Dalvin Tomlinson. And so the reason why I'm just going to mention why I'm not giving Newsome is close because he had some good plays, but he also got really lucky when a Bears receiver dropped a wide open pass that he got burned on. That was like a 50-yard pass that could have been detrimental to this whole game. And so he edges out of it. Moving on again, Dalvin Thompson's too. He had some real wreckage. He was kind of all over the field. He had a sack. He created a lot of, give you that defensive, that pressure from the interior, and he looked good. And again, it felt like more of a team effort on the pressure standpoint, but I'm going to sing out Dalvin to stand for that. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, I'm going to go with Ronnie Hickman at 1 brownie point. And Ronnie Hickman, I mean, hey, undrafted free agent from Ohio State, hometown boy. I'm honestly surprised people haven't talked about him a little more. But Ronnie Hickman actually played really well, and he had a lot of big moments, and when it mattered, he was in the right spot. And what a big play for him. What a big game for him. For a guy who's an undrafted free agent, a couple big games means you might actually have 3 to 5 years in the NFL. You could set up your whole life off of that. What a big moment, and he steps up and plays really well.
Especially with Grant Delpit being out.
Yeah.
Like, this is go time.
Yeah, this is it. And he's getting his opportunity that a lot of guys who are undrafted never get. And he's showing up, and you love to see it. So, I would have loved if that was Austin Watkins' story, but Ronnie Hickman, he showed up and showed out and definitely deserves a brownie point for his play. Who do you got?
For me, I'm not as harsh on Greg Newsome over that play. There's 2 reasons for that. One is because going back a little bit, right on that play, before Justin Fields threw that ball, it is of my opinion that Myles Garrett was being, I believe it was Myles Garrett, somebody, I don't remember who it was one of the most egregious holds of the last few weeks. Justin Fields should have never gotten that ball off in the first place, and Greg Newsome should have been covered. That being said, obviously he still blew the coverage, but Greg Newsome also made enough big plays, big standout plays, covering his guy, making tackles. I'm still going to give him credit and get him to 3 brownie points for me. At 2 brownie points, I'm going to give it to Dalvin Tomlinson. I think he was pretty consistent throughout the game, getting pressure, run stopping. He had a sack as well, I believe. At 1 brownie point, I'm also going to give a shout out to Ronnie Hickman. He really played pretty well. And without Grant Delpit, I was really nervous about what's going to happen in the secondary. And I was thinking about coming into this game. We predicted a Browns win, but as the week was going and as we were leading up to the game, we kept hearing about another injury, another guy's out. And I started to really wonder, does this defense have enough depth? There's only so much depth you can have. But they've managed to overcome it. It's because of coaching and also because of guys like Ronnie Hickman taking a step up, and Andrew Berry deserves some credit for that. And Jim Schwartz deserves credit for that, and Kevin Stefanski deserves credit for that.